Hi, welcome to the first module of Introduction to World Literature. I am Dr. Cruz Peterson, and the lesson for this week is on the Malleus Maleficarum, written by Hendrik Kramer and James Springer. Before we begin, I'd like to give you just a little bit of background about the book. According to Shane Barrowman, and I quote, "The Malleus Maleficarum is thought to have been written by Hendrik Kramer, although authorial attribution is sometimes given to Jacob Springer, likely because Springer was a more credible individual within the Inquisition specifically and the Catholic Church generally." End of quote. Kramer, an extremely successful inquisitor, was later accused of heresy and eventually executed. His views on the Malleus Maleficarum were inconsistent with the church practices. Despite this condemnation, however, the book's popularity continued for centuries to come. The Malleus Maleficarum views of witches, witchcraft, and witch trials influenced many writers, some of whom we will study in this class, such as William Shakespeare, Maria de Sayas, and Arthur Miller, to name a few. In fact, Arthur Miller's play, The Crucible, chronicles the Salem witch trials from 1692 to 1693. Although Miller changed some of the historical facts from dramatic effect, the play still captures much of what occurred in Salem during the Inquisition. First published in 1487, the Malleus Maleficarum, literally translated as the Hammer of Witches, provided soldiers of the Holy Inquisition with a detailed handbook for dealing with the dark side, in other words, magic. Magic, as defined by Brian Lebeck, consists of mysterious phenomenon or extraordinary activities that go against the law of nature. Depending on how those forms of activities are controlled or manipulated by a person, the essential characteristics of maleficia can be defined first as religious, those in which, and I quote, a person supplicates and leaves the power to the spirit or God, and secondly, as harmful, not beneficial. They are intended to bring about bodily injury, disease, death, poverty, or some other misfortune. They are to be contrasted, therefore, with acts of white magic, the purpose of which is to bring about some benefit to oneself or another. White magic can be productive in the sense of helping crops to grow or women to bear children. It can be curative in the sense of healing a person who is ill, or it can be protective in the sense of preventing some misfortune from occurring or warding off some of the evil spirit or witch. The distinction between black and white magic can easily become blurred. End of quote. And I quickly just want to mention the Artha Vita that we will be reading as well, which contains what you may consider white magic, but I'll let you be the judge of that. White and black magic were indistinguishable as early as the 3rd and 4th centuries, as seen in the images carved in Christian tombs of Jesus holding a stick, as you can see in this drawing above. Some of the scholars actually interpret that stick as a magical wand. Around the years of 790 and 799, the Catholic Church attempted to control the people's fascination with witchcraft and superstition, with Alfonso the Wise passing the first laws against witchcraft in Spain. The Malleus Maleficarum opens with a discussion of the 3 necessary commitments, or concomitants, of witchcraft, which are the devil, a witch, and the permission of Almighty God. Within the first section, 80 weighty questions are considered. For example, question 6 asks, why is it that women are chiefly addicted to evil superstitions? While question 9 wonders whether witches may work some prestidigatory illusion so that the male organ appears to be entirely removed and separated from the body part. And there are some interesting stories within the Malleus Maleficarum, which we will not be reading, but you can on your own, of men actually waking up to having their male organ or their penis missing. Part 3 focuses upon judicial proceedings against witches and all other heretics. It describes how the proceedings must be begun and other such mundane matters, but it also addresses such matters as whether or not mortal enemy can be allowed to offer testimony against the accused witch, and thankfully cites scriptures to argue that mortal enemies cannot, in fact, testify in these proceedings. Question 15 comes second to last in Part 3, and it concerns the continuing of the torture and of the devices and signs by which the judge can recognize a witch, and how he ought to protect himself from their spells. Also, how they are to be shaved in parts where they used to be concealed, where they use to conceal the devil's masks and tokens, together with the due setting forth of various means of overcoming the obstinacy in keeping silence and refuser to confess. So you tell me, witch hunts, were they a means of A, to take control of sexuality and reproduction, B, of domesticating women, C, all of the above, or D, none of the above? If you chose C, you're right. As we will see here, in the opening discussion of torture, judges are warned against a one-size-fits-all approach to inflicting pain upon witches, which in that time period witches were both men and women, but in most cases there were women that were prosecuted. Soft approaches were offered, such as placing a hand while in prayer upon the head of the suspected witches. If they weep, then they're innocent. Of course, the witches must both be stripped and entirely shaved in order to observe their body for signs of communion with the devil, and they must be searched for any signs of witchcraft or witchcraft paraphernalia, even in the most secret parts of their bodies, which must not be named. Hair was thought to have a lot of power, since it was believed that witches braided spells into their hair. So, can witches sway the minds of men to love or hate? One of the questions we will explore this semester is whether witches can sway the minds of men to either love or hate. I want you to keep Circe and Medea in mind as you proceed. The following slides are excerpts of Question 7, assigned as required readings, and we will go ahead and read them here for you. So Part 1, Question 7, again, asks the question whether witches can sway the minds of men to love or hate. For there are three things in man: will, understanding, and body. The first is ruled by God, for the heart of the king is in the hand of the Lord. The second is enlightened by an angel, and the body is governed by the motions of the stars. The book of the Ecclesiastic Dogma says, the devil cannot see our inner thoughts. And again in the same place, not all our evil thoughts are from the devil, but sometimes they arise from our own choice. Besides, it is not valid to argue that because he can influence the inner emotions, therefore he can govern the will. For the emotions are stronger than the physical strength, and the devil can affect nothing in a physical way, such as the formation of flesh and blood. Therefore he can affect nothing through the emotions. But against this, the devil is said to tempt men not only visibly, but also invisibly. But this world would not be true unless he were able to exert some influence over the inner mind. In answer to the arguments for Part 1, Question 7, Kramer writes, but for the answer to the arguments, for the first, that the will of man is ruled by God, just as his understanding is by a good angel, the solution is clear. For the intellect is enlightened by a good angel only to the knowledge of the truth, from which proceeds the love of that which is good. For the true and the actual are the same. So also the intellect can be darkened by a bad angel in the knowledge of what appear to be true, and this through a confusion of the ideas and images received and stored by the perceptions, from which comes an inordinate love of the apparently good, such as bodily delectation, which such men seek after. So as you can see, even this tone sounds a little bit contradictory to what the church would normally predict or preach. He continues, as to the second argument, that the devil cannot effect physical changes in the body, this is in part true, and in part not, and this is with reference to three sorts of mutation. For the devil cannot change the body in such a way that its whole shape and appearance is altered, which is rather to be called a new production than a change, without the help of some agent or with the permission of God. And 2, but if we speak of a change in quality, as in the matter of sickness and health, as has been shown before, he can inflict upon the body various diseases, even to taking away the reason, and so can cause inordinate hatred and love. Mutations, a third kind, can be added, which is when a good or bad angel enters into the body in the same way that we say that God alone is able to enter into the soul, that is, the essence of life. Imagine writing this and preaching this in the 1400s. But when we speak of an angel, especially a bad angel, entering the body, as in the case of an obsession, he does not enter beyond the limits of the essence of the body, for in this way only God the Creator can enter, who gave it to be, as it were, the intrinsic operation of life. But the devil is said to enter the body when he affects something about the body. When he works, there he is, as St. John Damascene says, and then he works within the bounds of corporeal matter, but not within the very essence of the body. As for the third argument, a knowledge of the thoughts of the heart may come about in 2 ways, either from seeing their efforts or by reading them actually in the intellect. In the first way, they can be known not only by an angel, but even by man, although it will be shown that an angel has more skill in this matter. For sometimes the thoughts are made evident, and not only by some external action, but even by a change in the countenance. It is proved, then, from what has been said, that a spirit cannot enter the soul, therefore he cannot naturally see what is in the mind, especially what is in the inner depths of the soul. Wherefore, when it is argued that the devil cannot see the thoughts of the heart, and therefore cannot move the hearts of men to love or hatred, it is answered that he does learn men's thoughts through their visible effects, and is therefore more skillful in this matter than man. And so by subtle ways he can move men to love and hatred by creating phantasmas and darkening the intellect. And fourthly, although to enter the soul belongs only to God, yet it is possible for a good or bad angel to enter the body and the faculties allied to the body in the manner in which has been shown above. And in this way, hatred and love can be aroused in such a man. Enjoy the book. I encourage you to read the entire question that is as required reading. You'll find it very interesting and enlightening. And keep it in mind as we go through the semester and look at other works of witchcraft and sorcery.